Hi, my name is Thomas Dowling, and I'm the Head of Department of Computing at the Atlantic Technological University, Donegal. It's very nice to meet you. I'm pleased to be here today. So I just want to talk a little bit about computing, the computing courses we offer, what types of skills are required for doing computing, and the reasons why you might consider doing computing. So the first thing in terms of why you might consider doing computing, and which most people know about, is that there's plenty of different types of jobs. Almost no matter what your interest is, you will find something in computing that's going to suit you. Whether it's sitting in a room coding, which is kind of the idea that most people have of what computing is, but it's not really what most people do. You might be a designer, you might be building e-commerce sites, you might be a network engineer out on the road or indeed up on the mountain, or in the case of one of our graduates down in the Antarctic, fixing network communications, managing the internet, installing broadband. There's absolutely thousands of different types of jobs in computing. And for me, that's one of the main reasons why you might want to do computing, because it's such a variety of different types of jobs. And also such a variety of different types of technologies. And those technologies are constantly changing. The advantage of that is that unlike most other professions, it's really easy to move from one aspect of computing to another. So you might start off maybe working as a programmer. A couple of years later, you might be a project manager. A couple of years after that, you might be a network engineer. A couple of years after that, you might be working in artificial intelligence. There's always new technologies coming along. There's always new applications of that technology, which means that there's always churn. You can be a computer programmer for your entire career if you want to do so, but most people choose to change career within computing and to do different things over time. And as I say, the technology that's available today is really, really exciting stuff, and there's just some amazing stuff to work with. There is also, however, I would point out, lots and lots of jobs. I mean, at any given time, it's estimated there's about 6,000 vacancies that can't be filled in Ireland. Every graduate really has plentiful opportunities, excellent starting salaries, and if you have ability and interest and motivation, really the sky's the limit in terms of what you might think about earning over time as you develop experience and expertise. So, why else would you think about computing? Well, there's other reasons, such as, for example, if you want to, you can travel very easily. In terms of travel, most companies like Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, operate skills-based visas. And what that means basically is that the skill you have determines the likelihood of getting a visa. The big three in that respect are medical doctor, medical nurse, and computer scientist. And that simply reflects the fact that they are kind of the three skill sets that are generally the hardest to find worldwide. It's not just in Ireland. There are literally millions and millions of unfilled computing posts worldwide at any given point in time. So tremendous opportunities to travel if you want to, but there's absolutely no need to travel if you don't want to. It really is absolutely up to yourself. You have fabulous opportunities. It's just what you see yourself doing with your career and what your choices are. And it's great to have that kind of control over your career. Another reason you might want to do computing is that, contrary to what a lot of people think, it's a very sociable, very dynamic sort of a profession. It's all about teamwork. Computer systems are far too big to be built by one person. So that's all about people working in groups together and making sure that the end product of the efforts of anything from 3 or 4 to 200 people comes together into something that actually works and is coherent. So you're constantly meeting with your colleagues, and if you walk around an IT company, what you'll see is there's a lot of kind of open plan offices, there's a lot of breakout spaces, there's a lot of cafes. There's a lot of spaces where you can sit around, have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea with the other people in the team, take out a whiteboard, talk about what you're doing, and make sure that everybody is on message with each other and everyone is working towards a common goal. So it's very different in that respect from what people often think that computing is. What tends to make you good at computing? Well, if you went back 30 years ago, most people would have said maths. And there was a reason for that, because computing tended to come out of mathematics. Effectively, computers were big calculators, and most of the people who worked with computers were mathematicians. But that has changed completely over the last 30 or 40 years. These days, the tools that we use to work with computers are much more accessible, and computer programming languages are constantly being changed and updated to become more and more like English, because, of course, we are all used to speaking English, and the more like English that the computer programming language is, the easier it is to program in it. And it can be sort of funny sometimes, but if you go into a company in Germany or you go into a company in China, they're all programming in English computer programming languages, because, of course, most of these come out of America. So the reality is that even more so than in most other professions, English is the international language of computing. It is very difficult to work in computing anywhere in the world without speaking English, which is another reason that it's really, really easy to sort of move around the world, things like that. Coming from Ireland, because, of course, we all speak English, we all program in English, and that's an absolutely essential aid. And when you go into a company anywhere in the world, you will tend to find that they all speak English. What other skills are useful? Well, the thing about computing is it's a curiously artistic type of discipline, in that you're constantly faced with new problems, and there is a huge creativity element about solving those problems. Almost every day you will find that you're required to do something new, to fix some new problem, new error message, new bug, or to try and develop something new that hasn't been developed before. So it's dependent on you and your ability and the ability of your teammates to think outside the box, to look at the problem, to break it down into smaller parts, and to try and be creative and inventive about how you solve those problems. And that's a really great dynamic when you're working with other people who have the same types of interests and enthusiasm that you have. It's just such a wonderful dynamic to be working in that type of environment. Now, you also need to be persistent, because sometimes the solution you have isn't going to work very well. Sometimes you might spend a week working on something and you realize that you've just run into a brick wall and that solution just isn't going to work, and you have to be prepared to work your way backwards, figure out where you went wrong, and try and find a new path, because there's no point in saying to your employer or to the contractor, actually, this is an unsolvable problem, because it's never an unsolvable problem. It's simply the limitation of your own sort of persistence and imagination in terms of sticking with the problem and finding a solution. And you always find a solution. So that brings us, I guess, to the interesting point, which is that, it's a really, really sort of different, varied career. You will never tend to find that 2 days are exactly the same. You will always tend to find that you've run into new things and new experiences. And as I say, it's a real team-based sort of a profession, so that there's always lots of people to talk to about. And I was saying about going for coffee, sitting down with 3 or 4 of your workmates over a cup of coffee, discussing the problem, looking for what maybe went wrong, why didn't it work, how else might you approach it. And you learn from each other and you work together, and it's a really, really lovely way to work. So what types of jobs might you look at? Well, there's just thousands, and you can see the list there, which is just a very, very tiny snapshot of the different types of jobs. If you go onto a website such as monster.ie, for example, and type in computing jobs, and you'll just see a vast, vast array. And there's the kind of traditional jobs, sort of working in the internet, working in programming, working in database administration. There's mobile apps development, project manager, systems analysts, and then there's kind of the new cutting edge technologies, big data analytics, medical healthcare systems, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality systems. There's games, there's security. It's just a vast, vast range of different types of jobs. And you will find something that's of interest to you. No matter what it is that you're interested in, you will absolutely, definitely find something that's of interest to you. So where might you work? Well, there's a huge array of choice. Ireland is host to the European corporate headquarters of all 10 of the world's largest computing companies. But there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other computing companies in Ireland, ranging from small indie games developers with 3 or 4 employees up to Amazon, Google, with a couple of thousand employees each. I think Google might have something like about 9,000 employees in Ireland at the moment. Now, they're not all working in computing. You're going to have people who are in sales and marketing and all sorts of other jobs as well, but a huge proportion of the people they employ are working in computing. So there's a vast range of kind of opportunity in terms of the employers that you work for. Sometimes people will find that they really want to go for a big employer like Amazon because they like the reputation, they like the idea that maybe they'll have the opportunity to work in America for 6 months or a year, or in other countries in different parts of Amazon's international kind of network. And those opportunities are all there. Sometimes you will find somebody says, you know what, I want to work for the local company with 10 or 12 people because I think I'll get a huge range of experience with that company. And that's absolutely fine. And what you'll often find is that people maybe start off working for a small company to get a range of experience and opportunities to kind of be a jack of all trades, do lots of different things. And then as they get more senior and they get promoted, they move into bigger companies and climb kind of the corporate ladder. Really depends on what it is that you're interested in doing. Typical Workface characteristics. The thing you have to remember about computing is that there is a shortage of people. There is a shortage of skilled people. And the more skilled and more experienced you become, the more valuable you are to a company. What the company does not want is for you to take your 2 or 3 years experience with them and go working for one of your competitors. So they look after you. The workplaces you will tend to find, if you tour an IT company, the workplaces are really nice, clean, fresh, welcoming types of environments, very sociable, very social types of environments, tend to be quite flexible, tend to allow you to work from home even before the pandemic. IT companies were particularly flexible in that respect. And it's all just reflection of the fact that they want you to come, they want you to stay, and they want you to work within their organization. They want to keep your expertise in-house as much as they can. But of course, there's huge opportunities, so that's up to yourself. The specific courses we have here in Letterkenny are quite varied, and what I'd say is that most of them work on the principle that they kind of have a core of computing. So that's really important because you don't really know in 10 or 20 years' time what it is that you're going to be wanting to do. You might be deeply, deeply interested in games or in security at the moment, but over the next 10 years, your interests might change quite a bit. So doing a core set of computer skills is really, really important, and that covers all the usual things from computer hardware and the internet, networking, programming, databases, project management, software engineering, all the things that you would see on any typical computing course almost anywhere in Ireland. And then there's the specialism, so applied computing does a lot of programming. The BSc in computing does a lot of programming as well. Then security obviously does a lot of security and digital forensics. Games does the core computing plus game specialism. And there's a lot of value to doing a game specialism because, of course, if you're interested in something, you're much more likely to do well in it. So we offer kind of the best of both worlds. We offer the opportunity to specialize a bit, but not too much, because we don't want to turn you into a one-trick pony. We want you to be able to go out there and have a wide-ranging, flexible career, which will serve you best in the long run. There's a new course on that list as well, which is the BSc Honours in CyberPsychology, which has just started this year. And that's a really, really interesting course, which embraces a lot of core computing and psychology. And the idea is that as we work with ever more sophisticated computer systems, we need a deeper and deeper understanding of exactly how it is that we work with computer systems. And you think, well, is that really a big deal? Well, look at Apple. Apple is one of the most valuable companies in the world. It's worth trillions of dollars, literally trillions of dollars. And it is essentially successful on the basis that their products are slightly easier to use, slightly more user-friendly than their competitors' products. So if you're wondering, is there value in doing cyber psychology? Well, look at Apple. And the answer is yes, there definitely is. And that's a huge developing area as companies struggle to make their systems more and more user-friendly, easier for people to use. Because, of course, if you're a company selling just, let's say, something not necessarily terribly interesting, like an insurance product, and you've looked at a couple of websites and you find one of them really easy and simple and intuitive, you're probably going to do your insurance business with that company, simply because their website feels more comfortable and feels more intuitive. And so that's just a simple example of the value. When you look at Amazon or eBay, they didn't come up with those designs of their systems on day one. That is the product of hundreds and hundreds of people carefully analyzing every single aspect of that website to hone it and hone it to the point where it is absolutely the best product that they can build. The companies that haven't done that you won't know about because they've probably gone out of business. Another course that you might be particularly interested in is LY748, which is a 3-year honours degree in computer science, the only one available in Ireland. And that is specifically designed for people who have done Leaving Cert Computer Science or the equivalent in terms of, say, the A-levels, for example, or FETAC. So you do need a reasonable working knowledge of computing coming into it, and that allows you to hit the ground running and really get into the course very quickly, which is why it's possible to run it in 3 years. Now, you can do a placement on that course as well to bring it to 4 years if you want, but the basic honours degree is 3 years. The placement is optional, and it's up to yourself whether or not you want to do that. So, thank you very much. Really enjoyed talking to you. You'll see here on the last screen, I know this probably isn't terribly interesting at the moment, but we offer a wide range of MScs and we do PhDs and higher diplomas. And that's just because I would consider us to be one of the best computing departments in the country. We're extremely progressive. We do a lot of work with online, with upskilling people in companies. We do a lot of work with international students. We do a lot of research, hence our MScs and our PhDs in research. And that last screen is just to show you what an interesting, complex, dynamic type of a department that we are. We really do offer everything to everybody. So thank you very much indeed.